Hey there, it's Greg at Family Chevrolet, and it's time for you and I to trade keys. Interest rates are rising, but not at Family Chevrolet. We have 0% up to 72 months. Bring in your trade, pick out your new Chevrolet. Get $14,000 off Silverado, $9,500 off Tahoes, $6,000 off Equinox. They're unloading all the 2019s, and we need to make room. We've got a great second chance finance program on Malibu, Silverado, Trax, and Camaro. That makes it easier to buy than ever before. So let's trade keys and get you a low monthly payment. The better way to buy and sell your car, only at Family Chevrolet. This is Greg Morganson with Family Nissan, and I'm inviting you to the biggest Black Friday sales event in the history of Laredo. Every car has been discounted Black Friday style. We've got gifts, games, prizes, music, and free food. A Black Friday event like you've never seen before. Right now, save over $11,000 on any new Titan in stock. How about $289 a month on a new Rogue or Altima? It's Black Friday, Laredo, and that means big deals, huge savings, and our award-winning customer service. Black Friday starts now. Family Nissan now.
What's going on, guys? My name is Cash. That's Dr. Marte Martinez, and you are in the middle of Grow Yourself. And if this is your first time tuning in, Grow Yourself is an entrepreneurial self-development, self-help stream that is usually live stream on Facebook, but because of technical difficulties, we're not going to get into it. What we are going to get into is a little bit with this man here and his journey into entrepreneurship and now into city government. So, Dr. Marte Martinez.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
we broke the internet, guys, in case you didn't know. I don't know if anybody got to see the first part of the broadcast, but thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for being here and thanks for your patience. As always, with technology, you know, as we start getting deeper and deeper into the future of live video, live TV, and then, of course, the internet and social media and all these platforms, you start to hear about, you know, these stories of entrepreneurship, and yours is a very unique one because you fell into medicine through literally by trade. You were just kind of
as I was referencing earlier, I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. In other words, I thought that that was what I was pursuing. And when I went to school, I did prereqs for both medicine and veterinarian medicine. When I graduated, I moved to a little town outside of College Station, Texas, called Caldwell, Texas. And during that time, I became a volunteer firefighter. And so we would go out on calls and it was during those calls that I kind of was guided in a certain direction. What happened, while I was a volunteer firefighter, I became an EMT and started going out as a first responder. And one evening, we were called out to a call. And when I went out there, there had been an accident, and this involving a husband, a wife, and their child. And what happened, the husband had actually ran off. I don't even know whether he was drinking or driving or what had happened, but he had ran off. But when the wife was there, she was very scared. And she was very concerned and, of course, worried. Caldwell, Texas is a very Anglo-Saxon town. Everybody that speaks English. There's very few people that speak Spanish there. And she was a Spanish-speaking person. So when I showed up and I noticed that she was scared, I started talking to her in Spanish, saying, ¿Cómo está? Se siente bien, como está su bebé, todo está bien. There was this calm that came over her, so she was very relaxed. She realized that there was somebody there that could communicate with her, and so she relaxed somewhat. She felt a little bit more safe. And that gave me kind of an opportunity to realize that there was a huge need for Hispanic physician, and especially here in South Texas. And so I pursued continuing on to become a paramedic, intermediate, and then a paramedic. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do more, so I became a paramedic in the emergency room. Then I started noticing how doctors were working and treating patients, and I fell in love with that. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be a physician. And so I applied to medical school, and I was fortunate enough to get into Southwestern Medical School in Dallas, Texas. I did my residency in anesthesiology in Oklahoma City, and then I did my subspecialty in pain medicine in San Antonio, and it was a job opportunity that brought me here to Laredo, Texas, and I've been here ever since. Before the break, we were talking about how there's a big market that's occurring for medicine, and here in South Texas, we're an underserved community. We have a lot of work to do, and that's one of the things that I've talked about during this political campaign, is trying to improve the quality of life to attract young doctors into our community. Right now, we're in a situation where we have great nursing programs. We're starting to establish our physician assistant programs here in the city, our nurse practitioner programs here in the community. We're on the precipice of becoming really an international medical community. We just started 2 programs through Laredo Medical Center, residency programs, and if we can make or we can keep some of these young doctors that are going to be graduating in this area, I mean, the sky's the limit to what we can do as a medical community here in Laredo, Texas. My path was sort of divine intervention. I just followed the path of what God was leading me towards, and it led me here to Laredo. And as far as being an entrepreneur, what I do is a little different than what most anesthesiologists do. Most anesthesiologists, they go into the hospital and they do cases, right? They take calls and all that sort of stuff. I don't do that. I set up more of a practice doing interventionally based pain medicine. What that is, it entails interventions, including spine injections in the cervical spine, face injections for face pain, lumbar spine injections, injections to the knee, nerve blocks and pain pumps for patients in cancer. And so we do quite a variety of things, but we do these from kind of a 9 to 5 sort of practice. Everything's done in my clinic. I work as my own procedure center in my own clinic. So it's a unique sort of practice that is afforded to pain medicine doctors and other people like interventional radiologists. Yeah.
And one of the things that you mentioned, and we'll touch a little bit on the clinic, because I think there's a journey there that everybody has to go through when opening their doors to their own business. But when you came to Laredo, what was it opportunity that really brought you here?
It was the man. It was Dr. Jaime Sweat.
Okay.
When I was graduating from San Antonio in pain medicine, there was no limit to what I could have chosen. There was job offers in San Antonio, there was job offers in Austin, and there was job opportunities in the Valley. And there was opportunities to open up my own practice in the Valley as well. But there was a man, Dr. Jaime Sweat, who had a practice here, a thriving practice. And Dr. Sweat, he came up to meet me in San Antonio. We had breakfast, and he said, "I need a junior partner. I need an employee, and to become my partner over the course of years." And I came down. I looked at the clinic, and I looked at what he had established, and I realized that this man knew more about medicine than I did, which is what you get from 14 or 15 years worth of experience. And then on top of that, he had this sense of entrepreneurship that you really don't see in a lot of physicians. They lack that capacity to be able to do both. And I realized that if I came to this job opportunity, I was probably going to learn a lot. And I made a choice, and I was right. I made absolutely the right choice.
And you touch on something, because it's like through entrepreneurship, you need mentorship. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like the doc was that mentor. Would you say that?
Yes, he was guarded though. I had to ask a lot of questions, and I had to question a lot of things, and I had to find my way through the practice, because when you've been doing it a certain way for 14 years and a young buck comes and tells you, "Hey, why don't you do it this way?"
Right.
Well,
slow down, grasshopper.
Slow down, buddy. Yeah. Okay, I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
But that's the case. That's what happened. You do need to have mentorship, and that's why I try to mentor any young doctor that's looking for an opportunity, or any businessman that's looking for that's trying to grow themselves. They come in and they ask me questions. In fact, some of the young doctors that have come in, they have my phone number, and they text me if they need me, or they call me if they need me. Just because I have 7 years worth of experience of understanding the culture of the city, and then medicine, and then really the way medicine is heading, and how to run a practice. I run a practice differently than most. I don't take a lot of debt on. I pay everything cash as I go. I just run very streamlined, very efficient, and then I listen to my patients a lot. I take criticism from my patients and then from my staff as well. So I do things a little different. I really want to run an efficient practice that caters to patients. I run it almost as if my patients are my customers, and the customer's always right.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of what I try to do. You know, simple things like when I took over, I put coffee out. You know, and little, and patients love that. You know, and little touches that I try to do throughout the practice to make it my own and make it more patient friendly, because that's what I think it should be about. Because when patients come to see me, they're in pain. They tend to be depressed. They tend to be down. They've been through several physicians that haven't been able to answer their questions simply because pain is a very difficult thing to sort out. There's central mechanisms involved. There's spine mechanisms involved. There's emotional mechanisms involved. And then there's really the actual physical problem that's occurring. And you have to handle and treat every one of those things. So the last thing that a patient in chronic pain or in pain needs is a doctor that's upset or staff that's rude, or they don't deal with that.
Adding fuel to the fire.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm glad to hear you, because a lot of what you're saying is, again, things that I've heard from some of the most successful people, and you know, mentorship, experience, even just when it comes to business, putting customers first. Your patients are your customers. I mean, essentially, those are, without patients, you don't have a business.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, what was that journey like? Opening up the clinic for yourself. Mm-hmm. What do you think was the hardest thing, you know, getting that project done to actually open the doors? Because there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, there's permits, and did you have to deal with all of that, or what?
Yeah. So Dr. Sweat had an established practice. However, I had to open everything up again. Now, I bought what they call goodwill, which is patience, if you will. But I had to go through the process of accreditation all the way through. So through Medicare, through all the insurances. And it took about a year to do those things. And all the while we weren't making a lot of money, simply because there's a high turnover that happens. What the biggest thing was, believing in yourself. That was the most difficult thing. I'm a confident person, but can you really handle the responsibility of 10 employees or 12 employees and their families in addition to your family? Excuse me. There's a certain amount of risk involved in anything that you do. So are you ready to handle that type of responsibility? Do you believe in yourself enough? Do you have enough confidence in yourself? Both your skills as a physician and then also your skills as a business administrator. And that's the difficult part. We were fortunate that Dr. Sweat had already taught me some of the intricacies, and I kept 2 or 3 of the staff that was there previously to kind of help me guide this new path for the clinic. But everybody else, we started over again. And then there was the training of employees and showing them how I like to do things. Going through several employees that didn't really have that frame of mind that I have, which is patients first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then us, you know. So those are the difficult points that we had to navigate at the very beginning of the practice. There was the bureaucracy of Medicare and all the insurances as well. Understanding how much you were going to have to pay for everything, because you know we have a huge overhead in medical practices. People don't realize that. But we provide, well, in my clinic, we provide insurance for all our employees. We give them time off. And I actually do a 401k plan for my employees, which I match every year.
That's nice.
And so, I had to set all these things up and it took some time to get there. So it's just a whirlwind of things that are occurring. And if you're not, number one, if you don't have good time management skills, you're going to be in trouble.
Right.
Number 2, if you're not organized, you're going to be in trouble. If you don't know how to delegate duties to certain people, you're going to be in trouble, because you can't do it all yourself. You have to find great people that you believe in, delegate some duties to them, and understand that you're ultimately responsible, but you have to put that team in place, and that team is then going to make you successful. And then you have to make sure and go back and reassess things that you've done and make sure that is it working or it's not working, because we make decisions in a business, and we think, hey, you know what, this is going to work, but sometimes it doesn't, and we have to go back and try to reevaluate those things. And we do that in the clinic right now with monthly meetings, and then looking at our budgets and looking how much it's costing us to buy a needle or buy a steroid. In other words, there's just a wide array of things, and you're going to need good time management skills. You're going to need to be an organized individual. You're going to have to put trust in people around you. I think those are the biggest keys.
Man, you're hitting it all. And I hope that people that see this understand the detail of entrepreneurship. It really is more deep and more hands-on and more, I guess, what is the word I'm looking for? I think you need experience to be an actual successful entrepreneur, because what it sounds like is you were getting all that experience from the doc through his mentorship. He showed you the ropes, and then boom, now you're talking time management, 401k for your employees, insurance for your employees. I mean, that's next level. And so I want to commend you on that, because it's when you take that small business and then you start to build it into a little enterprise. And then from there, that was my next question is, for you, I know, and we'll talk about city council and city government here in a second, but long-term goals for you, what's your vision? Like, what do you see 10 years from now?
That's a great question. So, and I'll tell you, I've had a little vision since day one, right? You need to have a plan, and that plan, then you start realizing it slowly but surely. And so first thing I did is I didn't want to pay rent to someone else. And I had been paying rent to Dr. Sweat for 3 years. I saved up enough capital to be able to buy the building. Now I financed about 50% of the building. I paid 50% of it off. And that's okay to do it, a very large fixed asset.
That's actually pretty good, because most people just save up the 6%, 10% for the down payment, and then finance the rest. But I just
wanted to have enough in the bank to pay off 50% if I needed to. And we were very fortunate to get great financing, and that was step one. Step two is I bought the lot next door because I have a plan of converting my building over the course of time into a surgical center, which we don't have many surgical centers in Laredo. And I think a surgical center provides a higher level of care than a clinic can. And I think many models that you're seeing in medicine right now are geared towards surgical centers, just because they provide a very efficient system with a lot of detail to a quality of care, with shared cost and shared savings with governments, and so with government entities. And so I think the way of medicine is the surgical center for the foreseeable future. And so we want to convert that large building. We have a 5,500 square square building into that surgical center, and I want to build a small clinic next door. Once that's established, I'd like to, and I have been trying to for the last 2 years, bring in another physician. Mm-hmm. We've had a couple of physicians that have come in here recently, but even at that, I'm extremely busy. We have a surplus of patients because everybody has back pain or neck pain or headaches and that sort of stuff. And I'd like to continue to grow the practice. We had when there was two of us, we had a clinic on the south side of Laredo. It was off of Jaime Zapata, and so that's what we'd like to do. We'd like to have a second clinic in Jaime Zapata and a third clinic down in the south, over towards LC and that sort of stuff. So we have plans as far as what we want to do with the practice. But we have to be patient, and we have to be methodical, and we have to understand that it's going to take some time to achieve those goals. So that's kind of my vision. Yeah,
nice. Man, I hope that and when you talk about it's almost as if you know it's going to happen. You see it; it's already happened. But patience is the word, I think, and that's the kind of the virtue that you need to have.
Yeah, I believe that you have to make what you have now extremely efficient, and only when you're at a good amount of efficiency and maximum efficiency, then you can tackle another project. If you're not there yet, as far as, let's say, If your practice still can grow where you are by adding another, let's say, a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner, then you do it that way. But if you are at maximum capacity at where you are, then you have to expand to that next step. And so that's where patience comes in. You have to understand the long-term strategy. If you take on too much, as far as like a small business, if a small business owner takes on too many different properties, your overhead really doubles and then triples, and then you get into the situation, will the volume be enough to handle the added expense of the overhead?
Right.
And it's difficult.
Because you start getting into debt, and then that debt can basically crush your business. And we've seen it happen to the biggest of businesses, the legendaries, the legends of giants in the world of business. Switching gears a little bit, from the things that you've said, is that how you would kind of manage your role as a city government official? Is that how you would take on city business?
Well, I think the role of a city council member is a little different than the role of an entrepreneur. The city shouldn't be entrepreneurs. The city should facilitate entrepreneurship. Okay? And the role of the day-to-day operations should be handled by the managerial system that's written in our charter that way. The role of a city council member should be to guide the community with a strategic vision of what we want our community to be. Handling the day-to-day operations is actually not what we're supposed to do, and that's in the charter. And the reason for that is because we should be fair across the board in city government. Whether you have a tremendous amount of money or you're a startup company, you should have equal access to opportunity in Laredo, Texas. Mm-hmm. And when phone calls start being made and then special favors start being done for people that have money and other people don't have access to it, well, that's not fair. And that's not conducive to a diversification of economy in our city. And so there is something to how I would handle those duties. In the sense that I would ensure, I'm a process guy. I believe in the process, fixing the process, not blaming the person. And so,
right.
And I've always thought that you have to look at a process to see if the process is the problem. And because if you don't empower people with the proper procedures or proper process, and you get into trouble, and then you start blaming individuals instead of what's really happening, which is we have a systemic wide issue. And in Laredo, Texas, we have that right now. We have redundancy of government. What that means is one individual has to ask another individual higher up and another individual, and nobody has clear roles as to who is accountable for what. And it all goes all the way up to the city manager level, and then it has to come back down through several channels, and then a decision is made. But when you have money on the line, you have a loan, or you're trying to develop rapidly, that's interest that's accruing. And if we're not giving we're not accessible to quick responses for entrepreneurs that are trying to open up businesses and get permits, and developers that are trying to develop, well, we're never going to be a city that's what they call business friendly. No, we have to protect our citizens, but we also have to move out of the way of development and let the normal development to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest problems I think facing whether land developers, entrepreneurs, people starting businesses. It is the bureaucracy that they are having to face. Investors who are trying to do business in our city, they're running into challenges, and I'm glad to hear you talk about that, because that is one of the biggest issues. I talk to business people, small business owners, people here downtown, to land developers in North Laredo that are really in your, and especially like in District 6, where there's a lot of land development that's happening out there. The challenge always comes back to permits, issue. Like there's this really, let's not talk about the infighting that's happening right now in city government. The infighting that's happening between people that are trying to develop, investors, business owners, etc., that are trying to just do business with the city, and there's a big disconnect there.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, the situation comes about because of that redundancy and that bureaucracy that exists. But now I think when I talk to developers tell us, just tell me what the rules are. Tell me what the rules are, and then we can start developing. But you can't change them based on the whim of a city council or the whim of a city manager or a building department, whatever it may be, depending on who I am. The rules have to be fair across the board. I always make this analogy where we talk about when I go fishing. You know, when the weather changes, fish don't bite. But if it stays cold for a few days, 3, 4, 5 days, the fish are going to start eating again. They're going to start biting again. Same thing when it gets hot. If it gets hot, fish don't bite. But if it stays hot for a while, then fish are going to start biting. And I think that's what developers are looking for. They're just looking to know what the rules are, how they can develop, and then they're going to be able to more rapidly assess the needs of the community and do what they're supposed to do, which is develop land, open businesses, and our city government should get out of the way of that. We don't need as large a city government. We need to scale our city government back a little bit, scale the tentacles, if you will, back a little bit so that we can be more efficient. We have to be efficient with our developers. That's what they're looking for.
And so North Laredo, I think has, and I'm a North Laredo resident. I live in District 6. The last 8 years have been, they've been great. I mean, I've been there since 2004, and, it's nice. We have, a lot of big businesses that have come through. HEB wasn't there when I moved in. Walmart wasn't there. And then, of course, like you've got at the Alamo Draft House, infrastructure like the overpass and the Loop 2035 over.
All that's was Blackstone development.
Right. So I'm talking San Isidro.
Yes.
All that area. The new United.
Those guys know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're really, really happy that we that we chose to live in District 6, my wife and I. It's been a great place for us to live. But I haven't really seen, like, District 6 reach its capacity, if you will. I really haven't seen it. I think these people were just already coming in. I didn't really see the council, the city really facilitate that. I think it was just, HEB saw the opportunity. They were like, well, we're going to bust through no matter what happens, because they have the capital to deal with that. But when you talk about a more lower level entrepreneur who really just maybe has, X amount of dollars in the bank, and then you run into these snags, it really puts pressure on that person who's saved up, their whole life to open their own business. They try to do it in District 6, and then they run into those issues with the building part. What is the key, though, to keep that growth happening? And I think that's one of the big questions of 2018 for Laredo is, how do we get people to invest in Laredo?
So, you brought up about 20 points, but I'll try to tell you that last question.
Well, that's the main question, because how do we get people, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a young startup,
stability.
How do we get?
We need stability. We've taken some black eyes in the city council and with our elected officials in the county and the city over the last several years. It makes Laredo look like an unstable city that doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't understand the needs of developers and business owners, and that can't stop fighting within the council. Not just the council, but within department heads. We need civility and stability. Now, I believe that a community has to invest in creating an atmosphere of entrepreneurship, and that means investment in infrastructure, redundant power supplies, redundant water supplies. We need to have a place so that if businesses want to come in, they can take their byproducts and place them in a very safe environment, away from our community. There are so many things that we have to, as a city council, look at so that people that want to invest their money can see that other people that have invested their money here have done well. I'm always concerned about taking money that's raised through sales taxes and that sort of stuff and applying it to a specific entity or a specific business. I think the role of city council should never be to dictate what businesses are going to make it and what businesses are not going to make it, because it's not fair and it reeks of cronyism. I think what we have to do is then take that money that we're getting and create that environment through infrastructure investment. Perfect example, downtown. Downtown, I think, has grown. I think the TERS that's here right now seems to be working. But we have to make sure that that money, that TERS that's being used, isn't used for one specific developer or one specific building it has to be across the board. But what if we use some of that money to create free Wi-Fi downtown? Or what if we created a zone downtown that was used on the weekends for entertainment purposes, that the streets were closed off and we use that money to try to drive business to downtown? Then I can see the utility of having such an entity. But to your point, I think you need stability, and I think you need civility on council. That's the most important thing. We haven't had that. We've had a very tumultuous relationship. When every developer tells you that city council is crazy and the developers get upset that the department heads aren't responding to their needs, and we realize that there's a problem. Now, there'll always be a certain amount of infighting that exists. It's common nature, they want to decrease cost, and the city wants to ensure that they pay their fair share of development.
Right.
That's natural, but not when it hinders the development that our city can have. And so to your point, I think the future is ensuring that we invest in infrastructure and that we have that proper semblance of honesty and accountability in our system and efficiency in our system.
What's the first thing you do if elected? What's the first thing that you do when you get into office? What are you looking at trying to get done? Do you have any projects?
So,
because I'm gonna bring something up that you told me when we first met. I don't know if you remember, and I don't know if it's a secret or anything, but you told me about a certain type of farming that I was just like, yo, that is an incredible idea.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
It's, what is it that you have lined up? What is your platform and what are your goals if you do get elected?
So if I'm blessed enough to get elected, the first thing we have to do is assess where we are. I think we need continuity of projects, and that's something that's been lacking over the last several terms, if you will, that when the new city council member comes in, whether it's on District 5 or District 6 or 2 or 3, they think that they have the best brand new ideas. And so what they do is they kind of scrap everything that the former city council member has done. And then thousands upon thousands of dollars that we have spent already then get wasted.
Right.
And so what I have to do, and I've actually started looking at the ongoing projects right now, a skate park, I think a rec center, there's certain things that are in the works and that have monies already allocated to that. I think I have to try to do my part to make sure that we can finish those because I think there was a lot of history and there's been a lot of money spent already, so we have to finish those projects. Next thing is we have to look at our roads because we have a huge problem with unpaved roads, specifically in the plantation area. They're paved, but they're very old. They haven't been paved since the 80s or early 90s, right. And they have a lot of damage. We have to look at those types of roads and make sure that these people have a nice road. Going to work, coming home, and we have a ton of potholes throughout the community that we have to start looking at. We have to look at our traffic as well. I think we need to widen some of the roads that we have right now. We have to create a north-south thoroughfare by extending Springfield all the way out towards the loop. And I think there's been plans in the works for this for 10 years or 12
right.
years, even money allocated for this. And we even have right of way already for some of these things. And so when you're thinking, what's step one? Step one is taking an honest assessment of where we are, figuring out which projects are going to need how much money, try to finish the small ones, and then try to save up our money over the course of time so that we can actually start building some of these other projects that are going to be a little bit more long term. But then when you look at it systemically, what do I intend on doing, not just in District 6, but systemically? I want to defease a lot of our debts. And I think I do not believe in running debt for an extended period of time. I think that it costs us interest over the long term. And I think
we're losing money.
We're losing money over the long term. I'd like to see if the citizens of Laredo would join me in putting some pressure on the city government to try to pay down our debts so that we don't leave it to our children and our grandchildren. And if we can do that, it'll put us in a much better fiscally responsible place, so that we are not almost at max capacity of bonds, and then we can actually, we may not even need to borrow money at that point. We may be able to just save up over the course of 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, and then use that money to redevelop downtown or redevelop the Heights or add to District 6. Or there's so many things that we can do, or push development towards South Laredo, which is vastly in need of entertainment and theaters and music venues. And South Laredo doesn't have movie theaters. South Laredo doesn't have any of these things. They're desperately hungry for that. And so I think we can do some of these things globally if the city council works together. But we can't do any of these things if we don't pay down our debts and if we're not more fiscally responsible. And that's what I'm trying to do.
So in terms of teamwork on city council, creating projects that are not district based. And while I live in District 6, I agree with you. I mean, it'd be lovely if we could just take all of those projects and say, well, you know what, all for us in District 6, because we've seen that a lot. We've just seen district-based projects that only benefit certain areas. What is your strategy to kind of work along the aisle to make it citywide so that everybody benefits? Because I think that's one of the biggest
we take turns.
Drawback.
We take turns. It's that simple. I was speaking with Senator Zaffarine, and they used to have this argument as to who was going to be the second in command, if you will, the mayor pro tem. And it was basically they would fight amongst themselves, among city council, like, no, I want to be mayor pro tem, and it was just infighting. And Senator Zaffarine said, well, the longest tenured, she wrote a little thing that said the longest tenured city council member should be the one that's the pro tem. They have the most experience. But there's not been one single fight for that position ever since. I mean,
maybe that's what it is.
That's common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you just take turns. Okay, you help me now. I'll help you now.
This is
this is here. And it was that simple. But it really. It is that simple. You have to be civil, and you have to understand that the whole community, the whole city has needs. I obviously am, I have certain specific needs that I think my citizens or the constituents in my district have, and I'm going to fight for those because I have to represent my district. But I understand also that as a city, if we don't work together, if this infighting between the South and the West and the East and the North continues, we'll never progress. We will never have true progress in our community. We have to grow past that, and we have to understand that together we are much stronger and a much more formidable opponent that can really compete on a state and national level. We can't do that if we can't get out of our own way. But if we work together, Laredo's going to be a force to reckon with for generations to come.
I believe it, man, because we have the talent here. We have a lot of advantages to being a border community. We really, really do, and I think sometimes we take it for granted. We don't realize the assets that we do have in the city. And before I end, I always like to ask a little fun question, which is, when you're not Dr. Marte Martinez, you're kind of just kicking back. What's it like, what's life like for you away from work, what's your thing, man? Is it like writing? I've heard doctors like riding motorcycles, going cross country. I've heard Mateo.
Yes.
I've heard there's others out there that just really enjoy the fruits of their labor. What's your thing? Are you Netflix kind of guy? Are you? You mentioned fishing. I don't know what's your thing.
Right now, I don't have a lot of time, but so the best thing that I can do is I like working. I like working with my daughters in basketball, and I like being the tickle monster.
I am the tickle monster in the house. Yes.
And like I threw out my back last week being the tickle monster. I was being the tickle monster, and then they started kicking me. So I picked up Eva and Nana, my oldest and my middle child, and I put them over my shoulder because I was going to throw them in the pool supposedly. Anyways, that is not Superman because there was kryptonite somewhere, and I threw out. But some of the hobbies that I enjoy, the hobby that I enjoy the most is dog training. I've been a dog trainer since I was 18 years old. I trained Labrador retrievers for hunt tests and field trials, and then I actually got into German wire-haired pointers recently. And that's been, I really enjoy that.
Okay.
And I enjoy upland game hunting, so pheasant hunting, quail hunting. I like those a lot, and I like working my dogs while doing that. And then my favorite of course is duck hunting. I just love being on the blind and cold. And I used to, when I was in Oklahoma City, we used to break ice and put out those, put out the decoys, and then sit there and drink some coffee and wait for the ducks to come in. It was my old dog that passed away a year ago, Phoenix. And so I really enjoy that relationship of working with a dog. And I do ride motorcycles some. I like being a coach for my girls in basketball. I just family stuff, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I like to do.
Yeah, nice.
And as far as TV, I don't watch a lot of TV. I read articles for medical journals, and then I read articles for the community, you know, development zones and urban development and those sorts of things. So that takes up a lot of my time. I want to fully educate myself so that when I'm making decisions, it's actually they're decisions based on merit, not decisions based on I think.
Right.
You know, it should be based on, okay, this is what I've studied and this is what I believe now based on the literature that I've studied. I think that's kind of a carryover from medicine. We can't just make decisions on so I
on a whim. Yeah. And you know, I'm glad to hear that you're reading and enjoying time with the family, man, because you got to disconnect from all this, get away from all this and just clear your mind, man, because this world is sometimes it demands that of you. It demands that you take a time out, you know, get in touch with the higher power and you really get to know yourself. And if it's getting you to know yourself through your family or through dog training or duck hunting or whatever it is, you come back to, you know, to a point where you're now like ready. Okay, let's go back and let's get back to work.
For me, I think Adoration Chapel helps me a lot with that. I take my wife and we go to Adoration Chapel sometimes on Tuesdays and just spend some time with the Lord there, and that helps clear your mind. You just sit there and just pray and read the Bible and that sort of stuff, and it helps a lot. And there's kind of like a meditative state that you get in when you're praying and you're worshiping. It's pretty fantastic. So that's kind of the balance that I get. Right now it's been a whirlwind though, Cash. I'll tell you, it's been have you ever seen Multiplicity where there's like 10 guys?
No, but I can imagine.
I think it's Michael Keaton, you know, he learns how to clone himself, and so it's kind of how I feel right now, you know, I'm here and there and all over the place. But I'm loving it, I'm enjoying it, my family's really doing well, the business is doing well, and we're in this runoff right now. And so things are going well. We're just going to keep pushing and keep relying on God's grace, and hopefully things work out in all the things that we're trying to endeavor at this point.
I think whether you, I could see you a part of city government, and I certainly do hope that you take that seat, because it is just through this conversation that I've heard just so many great things, and I can envision those great things happening for our city. So I wish you all the best. You're definitely successful at your practice, and I think I'm expecting big things from you, Marte.
Thank you.
And I think everybody else out there is too.
And it was agave plants.
Yes. Yes.
That's the farming that I think Laredo should do, agave plants.
Agave farming. And, when you told me that idea, it was so, I'm like, okay, I like this. I like that out of the box thinking, because this is what the city needs. We need out of the box thinking. We need creativity. We need ingenuity. We need innovative people to start taking our city to the next level.
And for all those people that don't know, agave is how you make tequila. And I I envisioned a zone similar to Fredericksburg. That's the wine kind of city. If we could have either along the river or in certain parts of Laredo have tequiladoras, or even if it's just imported through Mexico because of permit issues, but having venues here where we have people coming down to do tasting of tequilas, different tequilas, reposados, and then añejos, whatever it is, and then set up sort of a very, because we're, I think, one of the most authentically Hispanic towns in America. Somos raza aquí en Laredo.
Right.
Somos gente que nos gusta la fiesta, and I think that if we do that, we can incorporate some mariachis and some, and we can incorporate some folkloric dancers, and then really cater to people that are looking for something different as far as tourism is concerned, because we don't have enough tourism in our community. And so I thought having basically a tour of tequila in Laredo, Texas would just be a novel idea that I think many people would love it. And I know that there are certain entities that are already trying to work towards that, towards having, I think, a convention of tequila here in Laredo, Texas. And I think the city should help them a little bit. But I also think that actually producing something in Laredo is important. And I think farming along the river may be something that can help us. And
well, there's a lot of people don't know this, but there's orchards and there's a big history, and we have the land for it. So I think, if something like that were to take shape, I think it'd be a huge impact to not only the economy and tourism, but just to the outsider's perspective of what Laredo is, because we need to change the way people are looking at our city. They're looking at it in a very right now it's such a polarizing time for our country, border town, and so ideas. Yeah, absolutely. Ideas like that, I think, are going to take us there, and I hope you get a chance to put them into practice.
I hope so too.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So I'm surprised you didn't say, "Well, we're out, waiting for Doug, sipping on tequila." You said sipping on coffee.
No, never mix those two things. You don't mix drinking.
Yeah, you're gonna miss a shot, man. Dr. Marte Martinez.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much.
I
appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, again, make sure you check out Dr. Marte Martinez. He is on Facebook. And of course, we encourage each and every one of you to share today's interview. We want to thank Family Chevrolet, Family Nissan, who are proud supporters of entrepreneurship right here in the Gateway City. Thank you all to each and every one of you for tuning in. This has been another episode of Grow Yourself. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.